Hey, this is Jeremy. I'm here to make a little bit of scone action with my little recipe card right here. And just going to be going through this so that you can also make some scones that I think are pretty good. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, so we've got the dry ingredients here. So I've already got a cup of flour in here. We just have some all-purpose flour. Just going to get my 2.5 cup in. So 2.5 cups of flour.
Daddy, have more ants. We're not stuck.
We'll take care of it later, buddy.
Okay.
So 2.5 cups of flour. Got a tablespoon of baking powder.
Bye.
We are going to put in only a 1/4 cup of sugar. If you are not putting in any additional ingredients, you might consider putting in 1/3 cup. So 1/4 cup of that, but we're putting in an extra ingredient here, which we'll do in a little bit. We're going to put in just a little bit of salt. I've got a 1/4 teaspoon. Put in a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm putting it into a mixing bowl because the most annoying part about this is, of course, getting the butter mixed in, because you want to get the butter mixed in with the dry ingredients. You want the butter mixed in with the dry ingredients without getting it too warm. And so the best way to do that is get that mixed up in the mixer. You can also freeze it and shred it. You can freeze it and shred it, that is, freeze it and grate it. That works well. I think this one is kind of like my favorite way of doing it. So you see I've got some roughly chunked up butter here. We're just going to throw that in. And I believe that is all the dry ingredients. And so then this can just get going as we prepare the wet ingredients. Alright, so what we have is we have the 1 stick of butter. If I didn't mention the quantity, it was 1 stick of butter. It's mixed in with the flour, and it looks kind of grainy, like this. And the little pieces of butter, there are sometimes little pieces of butter, right? But they're nice and small, and that is okay. In fact, it might even, it'll give a nice little texture to your scone. So this looks nice and grainy. It looks grainy because of the added butter. And so what we can do is that we can add about 1/3 cup of stuff like dried ingredients. In this case, we have currants. Just going to throw those right in. Just going to mix them all up. And then immediately, those will be fine like that. There we go. So I just threw them in there. You can also soak them first if you think that it disturbs the texture of your scone after it's done making it. You can soak them for a little bit. It certainly won't hurt to do that. So going on to the wet ingredients. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an egg and I'm going to whisk that up. Now I'm whisking this up separately because we're not going to use this entire egg. What we're going to do is that this one egg is mainly so that I have an excuse to brush something on the top. A lot of recipes, some recipes don't have any egg at all, but the one egg to add to this is just fine. So after I get this whisked up, I'm going to leave about 1/4 to 1/3 in the bowl, something like that. You could even have a little bit less, depending on, but there it is, a little bit of egg yolk, and the rest is here. Now, I made some clotted cream, so this is actually some leftover cream milk from making clotted cream, or just like a type of butter. So I'm going to use that as basically my milk. You can use regular milk. I've even used half and half. But this is probably somewhere between whole milk and half and half. It's like a really, really creamy milk, but you see it's pretty liquidy. So what we're going to do for that is I'm going to put Actually, let me actually do it this way. With the egg, it should be just about a half or a little bit more. Should be like a little bit more than a half. Or you can just put it in and get a little less than half and put it in. You want a little bit of extra liquid. So this is kind of like a half plus a little extra, considering the egg. You want a little bit extra so that you can put not all of it in. You could, like, right now I'm expecting that right about a half of a cup of liquid will be enough. But if it's too dry, I can add a little more. And the reason why it's important is that putting in too much liquid is going to make it have the incorrect texture. So you want to have it like just enough liquid to all hold together. And I'll show you what that looks like. But so this is about a half or a little bit over of my milk plus egg. So once again, that was most of an egg and half a cup of milk. In this case, milk from making clotted cream, which is why it looks a little clumpy. So I'm just gonna make a little depression. I'm just gonna pour about half, 2/3 of it in. Now, the easiest way to do it, I think, is to just fork it in. And as it thickens, you'll notice that it starts to clump. And it starts to form little dough balls. But you'll notice it's still really, really dry. So let's put in the rest of the liquid. I said I was going to put in not all of it, and so I recommend waiting a little bit to this last step. I have it kind of measured out pretty well. I've got a pretty good feel for it. I kind of know how much I want to put in. So now, as I stir it now, a lot of recipes use the term shaggy. It gets shaggy as you stir it. And so that is just kind of like what we want to see. There's some dry stuff in here, but even so, as we stir it, it gets shaggy. And this is the right consistency. I'm going to get this stirred up. I'm going to get this clumped together, and then we'll go on to the next step. Alright, so this is kind of like what it looks like. I'm going to get my hands into it now. It might be a little sticky at first, as you put your hands into it first, but that's about the right consistency. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that all of the dry stuff at the bottom is mixed in. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to work it too much. You don't want to knead it too much. So I'm scooping in all of the liquid, getting it kind of mixed in without working it too much. Now that it's kind of there, I can almost just kind of press it against the side, and it kind of falls apart. I'm going to do it again and push it down, flip it over, push it down, turn it over, push it down, turn it over. Alright, so now it's getting to be something that will actually hold together. That's about the right consistency. It's not sticky to the touch, and it's ready for the next step. Now, I've got my dough ball here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting this in the freezer. I haven't actually preheated the oven yet, and that's because one nice thing to do that was recommended on some recipes, and I've discovered that it really does help with the consistency of this. So what I want to do is, after I've done all this stuff now, I'm going to preheat the oven to 425. Actually, on this oven, I'm going to do it to 435 because, of course, with our handy-dandy thermometer, at that temperature, it's a little cool. So I'm going to put it up to 435. Then I got this wrapped up in some saran wrap. I'm going to put this in the freezer. And now it's going to be in there for as long as it takes for that to heat, so about 10 minutes or so. Just to keep it cool, to cool it down a little bit, let the dough rest. When I take it out, it'll be a little more pliable and ready to roll out. So there you go. Well, it's come out of the freezer. The oven's preheated. I've rolled this out about a ½ inch thick, kind of roughly square, rectangular. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the edges. which, well, there's a lot of ways that you can do this. You can do it into a circle and cut it into wedges. You can just use a circular, what are those things called?
Cookie cutter.
Cookie cutters, thank you. And do that. That leaves a lot of extra bits. So this is the way that I like to do it because it's geometrical and efficient. So what I do is I just trim off the edges. We're not going to waste those, don't worry. Doesn't have to be too sharp here on the edges, just as long as they're cut. Save those. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make some small triangles. I'm going to make some nice small ones so that my kids can have them kind of bite-sized. So if you wanted big ones, maybe if you wanted decent-sized ones, maybe you just cut it here, here, rectangle, diagonal, diagonal. Maybe that's all you would do. I'm actually going to do another set of cuts so I have a ton of little ones. So I'll go and do that. Obviously, if you had a pastry cutter, rather than just a big knife, that might work a little better. But this works fine for me. Having them a little thinner or thicker doesn't even make a lot of difference. And when we're done, we're going to have some that are a little smaller. And some that are a little smaller and bigger, which also doesn't seem to make much of a difference. As far as for cooking time, and it's pretty forgiving as far as how long they go in the oven for. I'm sorry, they're pretty forgiving. They all seem to be pretty well cooked at the same amount when they come out of the oven. So we're going to do that, do my long cuts.
Did you get sprayed with the water?
And now we have a whole bunch of little ones now that we can put on the tray. So we'll cut to that and be right back. I said I was going to put them on the sheet, but I lied because obviously we got our egg wash. So they're all cut up as you saw from the last one, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to be very generous with my egg wash, and I'm going to go all across this like this. You'll notice that I'm just kind of like slathering it on. It's like I said, you can be messy with it. This is also the benefit of cutting it into these particular shapes, because I don't have to worry about putting egg wash on something that that I'm like cutting out of a sheet or something like that. It's just really efficient and quick, and I'm all about efficiency and making it where it just doesn't take a huge amount of time. So I'm almost done with this. Okay. And you'll see that I've used most of my egg. Maybe I'll even try to wash it a little bit more. And at this point, I can put them on the sheet and put those into the oven. And we're doing ours for 425 for 17 minutes, really, based on your stove and like how exactly your makeup is. 15 to 20 minutes in the oven. Keep an eye on them. I'll show you what they're supposed to look like when they're done. Well, we're not going to waste any of it. These are the little cuttings that were left over. So I'm just going to like basically just kind of like break these into 4 pieces. This is basically an alternative way to just make scones. Like they don't have to be triangles and they don't have to be cutouts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make some little discs. I'm just going to make some little discs. And I'm going to brush the rest of the egg white on it. And this is just like, these will puff up in kind of like these nice little circles. So you can see we got this. I can just like brush this on. Just for fun. And then you can see, this is basically like just another way to make scones. I mean, you can always just drop them on. We'll just put them there. This is what the rest of them look like, all on the tray. All ready to go. Matter of fact, I'm going to come over right here. I'm going to put these in the middle of the oven. I'm going to put them in the back. I'm going to close it up. put, for me, 17, but anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes will work. And there you go. We'll see what they look like when they get done. Alrighty, these have come out of the oven. As you'll note, there's a nice kind of golden brown. I might have actually put it on for maybe like 30 seconds or 1 minute too long. The way you would know is that the corners are starting to get a little too brown and a little too toasted. If I had done it for about a minute less, that would have been better. However, they're pretty good. And one way to know, kind of like to get an idea, is that the top is kind of like this golden color, and the bottom is about the same. And it's about the same on both sides, the same darkness. If it's really dark on the bottom, well, maybe it was too close to the burner on the bottom. If it wasn't dark enough on top, maybe there's not enough. Maybe there's not enough egg wash on top. You'll notice that these tend to split along the top. These are splitting along the top, and these tend to split along the sides. This is nice so that you can split them into half. So let's actually try one right now. So you'll notice that the texture is it's soft, but not too doughy. And then when you eat it, it's got nice and crunchy. And it should taste kind of buttery. Yeah, tastes pretty good. Here, let me give one to you. I'm gonna give one right to you. Up.
Very good.
Is it good?
Delicious.
You have to. Alright, so this is what you can put like clotted cream and jam on. You'll see that 1/3 gave a good kind of distribution of currants to the whole thing. They're pretty well, the edges, they're uneven a little bit because I cut them so small, but overall, they're about all the same tone, even on the bottom. I have noticed that if you put it on a cookie sheet, it is not as good as with a baking sheet because the cooking sheet insulates it on the bottom, and it makes it uneven. They tend to burn more on the sides than they do in the center. So, oh yeah, and Naomi told me to remind you this is just a greased baking sheet with Crisco, and there you go. That is a pretty simple scone, pretty tasty. I recommend trying it as soon as you can. Thanks, bye.